We are strange animals. Look at our closest relatives. Chimpanzees and gorillas are covered in hair. And so are orangutans, but we are not. We are the naked apes. It's one of the most obvious things that separates us from them. We have hair on our heads, we have some in other places, but our bodies are mostly bare. This is not normal for a mammal. Think about it. Dogs, cats, bears, mice. They all have fur. Fur keeps them warm, it protects them from the sun, it protects their skin from cuts and scrapes. Fur is a very useful thing to have. So why did we lose it? And when did this happen? It's one of the big questions in human evolution. The answer isn't a single simple fact. It's a story with a few different characters. The story involves the changing climate of Africa, the way we started to move, what we started to eat, and even the tiny parasites that live on us. The clues are scattered. Some are in our genes, some are in the fossils of our ancestors, and some are in the logic of how a body works. Let's start with the when. This is tricky. Skin and hair don't fossilize well. You can't dig up a bone and know if its owner was hairy or not. So scientists have to be clever. They use indirect evidence. They become detectives looking for clues left behind at the scene of the crime. One of the most ingenious clues comes from lice. That's right, lice. We have two different kinds of lice that live on us. There's the head louse, which lives in the hair on our heads, and there's the pubic louse, which lives in our pubic hair. They are different species. They are adapted to their specific homes. The pubic louse is actually more closely related to the gorilla louse than to our own head louse. This suggests our ancestors got it from gorillas, maybe from sleeping in their old nests or hunting them. But the important part for our story is the split between our head lice and our body lice. The body louse is a variant of the head louse. It doesn't live in hair, it lives in our clothing. By studying the DNA of these two lice, scientists can estimate when they diverged. That divergence tells us when we started wearing clothes regularly. The best estimates for that are around 170,000 years ago. This is a clue for when we needed clothes to stay warm. That means we were likely hairless by then, at least in colder climates. But that only tells us when we were already naked. It doesn't tell us when we lost our fur in the first place. For that, we need to look at the head louse and the pubic louse. They are separated by a wide expanse of bare skin. For them, it's a desert. They can't cross it. A louse from your head can't just crawl down to your pubic region. There's no continuous forest of hair for it to travel through. Scientists can compare the DNA of the head louse and the gorilla louse, which gave rise to our pubic louse. By looking at the genetic differences, they can create a molecular clock. This clock tells them when the two lineages split apart. The split between the human head louse and the chimp louse happened around 6 million years ago when our ancestors split from the chimpanzee lineage. The pubic louse, as we know it, came to us much later, but the key insight is that for two distinct lice populations to establish themselves on one body, there had to be a significant barrier between them. That barrier was bare skin. The evolution of this bare skin landscape is estimated to have happened around 3 million years ago. This is a rough estimate, but it gives us a ballpark. Another clue is in our skin color. All our primate relatives have pale skin under their dark fur. If you shave a chimpanzee, its skin is pinkish or white. Our earliest ancestors were likely the same. They had fur, so they didn't need dark skin to protect them from the African sun. Dark skin, full of the pigment melanin, is a natural sunblock. It protects against harmful UV radiation. The only reason to evolve dark skin is if your skin is directly exposed to the sun. So the question becomes, when did we evolve dark skin? Scientists can look at the genes that control skin pigmentation. One of the most important is called MC1R. By looking at the variations of this gene in modern African populations, where the pressure for dark skin has been the strongest, they can estimate when the gene became standardized. The evidence suggests that our ancestors evolved dark, protective skin around 1.2 to 1.5 million years ago. This provides a pretty strong time frame. We must have lost our fur before or during this period. If we still had fur, there would have been no evolutionary pressure to develop dark skin. The fur would have been doing the job, so combining the clues, we get a window. The process probably started sometime after 3 million years ago and was well underway by about 1.5 million years ago. This period lines up perfectly with the emergence of a new kind of ancestor, Homo erectus. These weren't like the earlier, more ape-like hominins such as Australopithecus. Homo erectus was different. They were taller. They had longer legs and shorter arms. Their bodies were built for walking and running long distances, and they had bigger brains. It seems very likely that Homo erectus was our first naked ancestor. Now for the big question, why? Why would we lose something so useful as a coat of fur? There are a few different ideas, but one stands out as the most widely accepted. It's all about heat. This is often called the savannah hypothesis or the thermoregulation hypothesis. The story starts with a changing world. Around 2 to 3 million years ago, the climate in Africa was getting drier. The dense forests where our earlier ancestors lived began to shrink. They were replaced by vast open grasslands. At the savannah, this new environment presented new challenges and new opportunities. The food was more spread out, the trees were fewer and farther between. Our ancestors had to spend more time on the ground walking between patches of resources. And they started doing something new. They started eating more meat. Meat is a very concentrated source of calories and fat, perfect for feeding a growing brain. But getting meat on the savannah is hard. You can scavenge from the kills of other predators, or you can hunt. Early humans were not the strongest or fastest predators out there. A human can't outrun a gazelle in a short sprint. We don't have sharp claws or powerful jaws. We had to use our brains and our bodies in a different way. This is where being a bipedal, long-legged runner comes in. And this is where losing our fur became a superpower. Imagine you are a Homo erectus on the African savannah at noon. The sun is beating down. It's incredibly hot. Now, imagine trying to run in a fur coat. You would overheat almost immediately. Animals like cheetahs are incredibly fast, but only for a very short burst. They generate so much heat that they have to stop and rest, or they would literally cook their own brains. Most mammals cool down by panting. It works, but it's not very efficient, and it's hard to pant effectively while you are running hard. Primates, including us, have a different method. We sweat, but we have two kinds of sweat glands. Apocrine glands are associated with hair follicles. They produce an oily, fatty sweat. This is the kind of sweat that dogs and horses produce, which lathers up on their fur. It's not great for cooling. Then there are eccrine glands. These produce a watery sweat that evaporates directly from the skin's surface. Evaporation is a very powerful cooling mechanism. It's like your own personal air conditioner. Humans have an incredible number of eccrine glands, up to 10 million spread all over our bodies. We are the sweatiest apes by a long shot. Here's the problem, though. Watery sweat from eccrine glands doesn't work well if you have a thick coat of fur. The fur would get matted and wet. It would trap the moisture and the heat like a wet blanket. To make sweating an effective cooling system, you need to get rid of the fur. You need naked skin where the sweat can evaporate freely into the air and carry heat away from the body. So the theory goes like this. As our ancestors moved onto the savannah, they began to hunt during the day. This was a smart move. Most of the big predators like lions are active at dawn and dusk. They rest during the heat of midday. By being active then, our ancestors avoided the main competition. They developed a unique hunting strategy called persistence hunting. The idea of persistence hunting is simple, but brutal. You don't need to be faster than your prey. You just need to have more stamina. A group of hunters would select an animal, say a kudu or a wildebeest, and just start chasing it. They would jog after it, not at a full sprint, but at a steady pace. The animal would bolt away, easily outrunning the humans. But it would have to stop to rest and cool down by panting. The humans, with their long legs, efficient strides, and superior cooling systems, would just keep coming. They would track the animal and show up again, forcing it to run again before it had fully recovered. This could go on for hours, over many miles, under the hot sun. The animal, covered in fur, can't shed heat as well as the naked, sweating humans. Eventually, the animal would collapse from heat exhaustion. Its body would simply overheat and shut down. The hunters could then walk up and finish the kill with simple spears or rocks. This is a powerful explanation. It connects bipedalism, fur loss, sweating, and a change in diet all into one neat package. Our naked skin wasn't a liability. It was a key piece of technology that allowed us to become endurance athletes and successful hunters. It allowed us to fuel our growing brains with high-quality protein and fat. Our bodies became radiators, perfectly designed to shed heat in a hot, open environment. This theory explains a lot, but it's not the only idea out there. Another, more controversial one is the aquatic ape hypothesis. This idea suggests that our ancestors went through a period where they lived in or around water, perhaps in coastal lagoons or flooded forests. The argument is that losing our fur would have made us more streamlined for swimming, like dolphins or manatees. We also have a layer of fat attached to our skin, which is different from other apes and more like the blubber on aquatic mammals, which helps with insulation in water. Proponents of this theory also point to our voluntary breath control, which is unusual for a land mammal, and are downward-facing nostrils as potential adaptations for an aquatic life. However, the aquatic ape hypothesis is not taken seriously by most scientists in the field. The main problem is a complete lack of fossil evidence. There are no hominin fossils found in the kinds of watery environments that the theory would predict. Most of the features it tries to explain, like fur loss and body fat, are better explained by the savannah hypothesis. While it's an interesting thought experiment, it doesn't have the hard evidence to back it up. A third idea, which is probably more of a contributing factor than a primary cause, is the parasite hypothesis. Fur is a wonderful home for parasites. Ticks, fleas, lice, and all sorts of other biting insects love to live in a thick coat of hair. These parasites aren't just annoying, they carry diseases, lots of them. By losing our fur, we made our bodies a much less hospitable place for these critters. Naked skin is easier to keep clean. It's easier to spot a tick and pick it off. This would have been a significant advantage for health and survival. This idea also connects to our social nature. Social grooming is important for many primates. They pick parasites off each other, which reinforces social bonds. For a naked ape, this process is even easier. We can see parasites, rashes, or infections on our friends and family members and help take care of them. So, reducing the parasite load could have been a major side benefit of losing our fur, even if it wasn't the initial driver. So, the most likely story is that we lost our fur to stay cool while running on the hot savannah. But evolution is never about just one thing. It's always a series of trade-offs. Losing our fur solved a big problem, overheating, but it created new ones. The first new problem was the sun. Without a layer of fur to block ultraviolet radiation, our pale skin was suddenly exposed. UV radiation can damage skin cells, leading to cancer. More importantly, from an evolutionary perspective, it can break down a vital nutrient in our bodies called folate. Folate is crucial for proper cell division and for the healthy development of a fetus. Low folate levels in pregnant women can lead to severe birth defects like spina bifida. This was a massive evolutionary pressure. Any individual whose skin was better protected from the sun would have a better chance of having healthy, successful offspring. The solution was melanin. Melanin is the pigment that makes skin dark. It's incredibly good at absorbing UV radiation and neutralizing its harmful effects. So, as we lost our fur, there was intense selective pressure to produce more melanin. Our skin became dark. This happened in Africa under the strong equatorial sun. It's why modern populations with ancestry from tropical regions have dark skin. It's a direct adaptation to high levels of UV radiation on a naked body. The second problem was the cold. Fur is great for insulation. Without it, we get cold easily. The African savanna might be hot during the day, but it can get quite cool at night. And what happened when our ancestors started to move out of Africa and into colder regions like Europe and Asia? A naked body is a serious disadvantage in a cold climate. We found several solutions to this problem. One was biological. We are fatter than other apes. We have a layer of subcutaneous fat that provides some insulation. But our main solutions were behavioral and technological. The most important one was fire. The ability to control fire was a game changer. It provided warmth, light, protection from predators, and a way to cook food. A fire is like an external fur coat that a whole group can share. The archaeological evidence for controlled use of fire becomes much more common with Homo erectus and later hominins. Another solution was shelter. Finding caves or building simple structures to block the wind and rain helped us survive the cold. And eventually we invented clothing. We learned to take the fur from other animals and wear it ourselves. As mentioned before, the genetic evidence from body lice suggests we were wearing clothes by at least 170,000 years ago. This was a critical invention that allowed us to thrive in almost any climate on Earth. We outsourced our fur. This whole story raises a couple of final questions. If we lost all our body fur, why did we keep it on our heads? And why in our pubic regions and armpits? The hair on our heads likely stayed for the same reason we lost the rest of it, thermoregulation. The brain is an incredibly sensitive and energy-hungry organ. It's very susceptible to overheating. A thick mat of hair on the head acts like a built-in hat. It shields the scalp from the direct solar radiation of the midday sun, helping to keep the brain cool. At the same time, it can help to retain heat when the weather is cold. It's the best of both worlds. The texture of human head hair, particularly tightly curled hair, which is common in equatorial populations, is especially good at creating a layer of air between the sun's rays and the scalp, providing excellent protection. The reason for keeping pubic hair and armpit hair is less clear, and there are a few ideas. One is that these patches of hair serve as a visual signal of sexual maturity. When a child goes through puberty, they grow this hair, signaling to others that they are reproductively an adult. Another popular idea is that this hair is good at trapping pheromones. Pheromones are chemical signals that can influence the behavior of others, particularly in a sexual context. The armpits and groin have high concentrations of apocrine glands, the ones that produce the oily sweat. When bacteria on the skin break down this sweat, it creates body odor. The hair in these areas could act like a diffuser, holding onto these scents and wafting them into the air to be detected by potential mates. A more mechanical explanation is that the hair in these areas simply reduces friction. Our armpits and groin are areas where skin rubs against skin during movement, like walking and running. A patch of hair could provide a protective cushion, preventing chafing and irritation. It's likely that the real reason is some combination of all of these factors. So, the story of why we lost our fur is the story of a radical transformation. It's about a creature that left the trees and strode out into a new, challenging world. To survive there, it had to solve a fundamental problem of physics: how to get rid of heat. The solution was to shed its coat and turn its skin into a giant, sweating radiator. This single adaptation unlocked a new way of life, persistence hunting, which in turn fed the growth of our large, complex brains. But this change set off a cascade of other changes. We had to evolve dark skin to deal with the sun. We had to master fire and invent clothing to deal with the cold. We kept hair on our heads to protect our precious brains. Our very nakedness is a testament to our evolutionary journey. It's a story written on our skin. We are not weak or fragile because we lack fur. We are powerful because we lack it. It is one of the key traits that made us human. We traded our fur coat for a bigger brain, and that has been the most successful trade in the history of life on this planet.